If you want a prime example of why elections matter and why you should vote, we're just going to turn our attention to Alabama's new abortion bill. Dyze in your house. Exclusively on East Coast Radio. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are that of my own and are not of my employer.
Nobody likes me. Nobody likes me. But that's okay, cause I don't like y'all anyway. And I don't like y'all anyway.
We have until November of 2020 to get our act together as a country, as a nation, to correct this injustice. And the biggest injustice in the world was allowing a foreign power to install a criminal into the White House and turn an administration into a fascist crime syndicate. That must be corrected. And we only have there's only one more election we have to correct it, or this whole thing is over.
If you don't know what Staten Island is, it's like New York's abortion that lived.
I never met any of the founding fathers, but I'm sure if they were listening to East Coast Radio right now and brand new episodes of Dyze in your house, they would agree with the sentiment. And you could follow us on Twitter at East Coast Radio. Get us on Patreon at East Coast Radio. Vote. Blue Wave 2020. Let's make it happen. East Coast Radio for the least heard voices. Every weekend. We here on East Coast Radio are trying to fight the rising tide of fascism.
The noun fascism is usually defined as a governmental system led by a dictator having complete power, forcibly suppressing opposition and criticism, regimenting all industry, commerce, etc., and emphasizing an aggressive nationalism and often racism.
Yeah, we don't want any of that in America. So we gotta stop it. We gotta put out the fire now. Staten Island was no joke. As liberals, not even as liberals, as Americans, as patriots, as people that like democracy. The only thing we can do right now to fix our country is use our weapons. And our weapons are our voices, our handmade signs, and social media. Get the message out there. Voting. Voting is key. Elections have consequences.
If you don't know what Staten Island is, it's like New York's abortion that lived.
Representing Staten Island.
Staten Island was no joke.
Hey, yo. Who's in the house? Dyze in your house. What is the word, peeps? What goes on? It is the weekend. It is East Coast Radio, and we are back here with another action-packed edition of Dyze in your house. This is my weekly podcast that I have turned into a vehicle to drive people to vote. Because elections have consequences, and if we don't all get together on the same team here, we are never going to be able to take our country back. We are not interested in fascism here in America, even though the current regime that runs our country is trying to get us there. We are on a one-way train headed there, and we gotta jump off. The house is on fire, and we need to start putting it out. We need to start that immediately. And if you're one of these people that thinks that, if you walk around and say, well, I didn't vote, my vote doesn't count. That's trash. That's a trash theory, and you need to get off that right away. Because, listen, it is way too important for people to be sitting home, just not voting. And we'll talk about Alabama in a couple of minutes, and we'll get to one of the reasons of what I'm talking about here. This country is heading directly towards fascism. Alexa, what is fascism?
The noun fascism is usually defined as a governmental system led by a dictator having complete power, forcibly suppressing opposition and criticism, regimenting all industry, commerce, etc., and emphasizing an aggressive nationalism and often racism.
Yeah, we don't want that. We want democracy, freedom. We want the things that America's been for the last 200 and something years. We don't want to go down a line and have authoritarians running the country who the rule of law does not matter to them, who commit crimes and face no repercussions. Yet if you or I committed those same crimes, we would be thrown under the jail. And that's a fact. So what we do here on Dyze in Your House is we tell you, listen, you gotta vote. You have to change the game. And first of all, let me just, I know I said it at the top in the little sound clip, but I'm just going to continue on with this. The views and opinions in my podcast are mine and mine alone, and do not represent those of my employer. And I hope my employer never crosses paths with my podcast, because that might be a discussion I really don't want to have. I'm just trying to hold on to this gig right now. But in all seriousness, you have to change the game. So, like, maybe in 2004, you thought your vote didn't count. This is 2019. We need all hands on deck. This is a rescue mission for democracy. Are you in? Because I see people that aren't gonna vote, but they're sharing like Trump memes on the internet when they don't know anything about anything. Listen, pay attention, read up on the candidates, see what they're doing, and get ready to vote in 2020. Because we have to have a blue wave in 2020, just like we did in 2018, in order to fix this country and to get back to where we were. Change the game. Everything you were doing, do it differently. That's how I lost 115 pounds that time. I just started eating the exact opposite of everything I ate. And instead of hopping on the bus, I walked. I did the opposite of everything I did, and somehow lost weight fairly quickly. Lost 115 pounds in 18 months. Now, this democracy thing is way easier than weight loss, because no metabolism is involved. It's no like, oh, well, you have a slow metabolism. Oh, well, your glands, they're swollen. Oh, I don't know. I don't know how weight loss works. But I'm just saying, we need, as a nation, to recognize that my vote doesn't count nonsense. That's deaded. That's done. You need to go vote. We're going to have some early voting this year in New York. I know a couple of other states have it too. We added some early voting. We have to get that done. And we need to elect leaders that are interested in making Election Day a holiday or on a weekend, so people can actually vote. There is no excuse for the amount of people that don't participate in democracy to not be participating in democracy. How many people can sit in a country and not sit in a country in an elected democracy where politicians work for you? I don't care, OJ, I saw a documentary where this politician took some money and they put it towards, I don't care about it. Stop! You're overthinking everything. We are changing the game. We have the internet. We will vet these people. That's why when you come over to me and you say, OJ, Bernie Sanders is pure as the white snow, I ask you why he honeymooned in Russia. It's a valid question. When people, oh, Bernie Sanders, he's the one. He's the one that's not in the corporation's back pocket. That's cool and all. Why is he the one? He's the one out of 500 elected people in Congress that has stayed there for 40-something years or whatever. He's the one. Nah. There's more to it than that. And, I've done some reading. I'll pass you along the links. You can do the same. And you can realize why we're in real trouble. Because Bernie's number 2 in the polls, and Biden's number 1. And both those guys are bad for Democrats. even if either of those guys was to win an election, any one of those guys would guarantee us losing the next one. Elections have consequences. Have oversight over your country. What do you want? I don't mean that in terms of like I'm going to give you something, but it's as simple as that. You don't have to say I don't understand politics. What do you want? Do you want... Okay. So check this out. The Electoral College is an archaic system. Archaic system that messes up elections more than it helps. So, are you interested in voting for a candidate that would take a look at the Electoral College seriously and say, you know what, maybe we gotta change this up? Well, that's war. I've heard Elizabeth Warren say that. Do you want to see children constantly locked in cages at the border? I don't either. Well, none of the Democrats do. So, there you go. That cuts half the field down for you. Do you want a plant that God put here, that was put here by your creator, God? Do you want to continue to have legislation that makes a plant illegal? A plant that was placed here by God, not created by, like, you know, lab technology and stem cell research. None of that. This is a plant that grows on Earth naturally. Do you want that to continue to be not only illegal, but do you want it to continue to be as illegal as heroin? These are just questions. These are just questions I have. Because all of the Republicans think that, you know, like, listen, Republicans do they say a lot of things to justify their racism and hatred and sexism, and a lot of them have to do with the Bible. But if you're a believer in the Bible, and you're a believer in Christianity, Catholic, whatever it is, if you believe in God and all that stuff, then you believe, then the theory is that God is infallible. God can do no wrong. So, like, if your aunt gets cancer, it's like, oh, well, that's God's will. You know, God's trying to test your faith. Okay, bet. So, if you make a plan illegal, are you saying that God made a mistake? But God doesn't make mistakes. God's infallible. I have a lot of questions. That's why I'm really not into religion. I mean, keeping it real, I'm into people being allowed to celebrate whatever religion they want in America, because that's what America's about. But at the same time, I mean, if I want to look at fairy tale characters, I'll go watch the new Avengers. Like, I mean, Captain America, Iron Man, Spider-Man, Jesus. Like, 3 of those guys are cool. But anyhow. So you gotta, listen. You have to vote. It's a vehicle. Do you want women to be the deciders on what they do with their bodies? Okay. I'm gonna touch back to that in a second. I just quickly, Mueller investigation. Again, like, a foreign government hacked into our minds and affected an election. And, yeah, we're okay with that, I guess. But Mike Flynn, Trump's first national security advisor, some documents got unredacted. And he was direct messaging Florida Rep. Matt Gaetz. And he gave Mueller a bunch of info, of a bunch of evidence of Trump trying to obstruct the investigation that he says he didn't obstruct. He didn't even try to obstruct. Spoiler alert, he's a goddamn liar. So we're not spending the next 17 months or whatever convincing people wearing red MAGA hats that they made a mistake. We're reaching out to the people that are, you know, just becoming voting age. Young people are the ones that primarily don't participate in voting as much as older folks. And we need to change that. Because if you look at the priorities of somebody 60 and up versus somebody 20 and up, vastly different. Vastly. Even sometimes I'll even be talking to my dad and like, his mind goes off into being 60 whatever years old, and it's like, oh man. These are the people that vote. Not my dad specifically, but like, these old, when you go to Dunkin' Donuts in the morning and you see those old white guys sitting around a table, you know, they were there when Dunkin' Donuts first opened, like they were there before they opened, and they had to be there first because this is their life. Those are the people deciding the future of your country. What? It's not what I want. I don't want a group of people like that deciding what women get to do with their bodies. Big facts. So let's talk about this Alabama abortion bill. A lot of states. So the Republicans are trying to overturn Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade gives a woman a right to get an abortion. Now, let me just start out by saying that being pro-life is not pro-abortion. We are nobody here at Least Coast Radio, Dyze in your house. I don't know of any Democrats, anybody that identifies as liberal, who wants to have any abortion parties and, you know, have an event on Facebook and like, yo, everyone come down to my house, get pregnant, and then in a couple of weeks, we'll go down to Planned Parenthood, we'll dead that shit. I really don't, that doesn't happen. So when people say that they're pro-choice, you have to not think that that's pro-abortion. You have to understand what that means. Alabama's bill gives you 6 weeks to get an abortion. If the woman does not get an abortion within 6 weeks, it might be 8 weeks. I was looking at the Missouri bill as well. 6 weeks. If you don't get an abortion within 6 weeks, and you get an abortion after that, you can face up to 15 years in prison. You can be charged with federal crimes. Federal crimes. The doctor can go to prison. Isn't that just crazy? Like, and I'm not saying I would be okay with it if a bunch of women passed the law, but like, old white men regulating vaginas. Like, alright, so let's list the things Republicans don't want to regulate. Wall Street. The environment. Guns. These are things that they don't want to regulate. Things that are literally going to kill us. Guns. We are going to die. The planet. We need to save or we're going to die. But Republicans want to regulate what women do with their bodies. Now that's just insane to me. A bunch of old white men are going to decide what a bunch of young women do with their bodies that's going to affect them for the rest of their lives and beyond. Throw them in jail. Now how is it pro-life to throw someone in jail? I mean, jail is not the place where you know, gain life. Jail is not a place where you get better. And that's the whole notion of the whole law and order, the notion of law and order is that people have, I don't know why, but people are convinced that going to jail makes you better. And it does not. Going to jail makes you worse. And like, so the Republicans are all about small government, don't regulate this, don't regulate that. But then the big government comes in, oh, gay people can't get married, oh, women can't have abortions. What happened to small government? What happened to no regulation? Don't regulate. What are you, Nate? They're Nate Dogg and Warren G all of a sudden when they come on the track. What is happening? And if they think that this Roe v. Wade battle is one they're gonna win, and listen, they did not make exceptions in the bill for rape or incest. If you were raped by like your dad or your uncle, who are you telling? Where are you going? The only place to go is Planned Parenthood. And again, Planned Parenthood is not an abortion factory. Planned Parenthood is a place for women to go for women's health issues. Women's health issues, ovarian cancer, stuff like that, screenings. It's not just abortions. This whole pro-choice thing and abortions, like, you have to understand. Nobody's handing out 40 ounces and wire hangers. That's not at all the case. And if you look at the numbers, now would be the wrong time to start saying, oh well, we gotta slow down the abortions. The abortion rate has been down over the past few years, and it's been down primarily in part of a little thing called the Affordable Care Act, something Republicans want to destroy. The Affordable Care Act made it easier for women to not have to get abortions because they weren't poor when they didn't break their arm and then go bankrupt because they didn't have health care. So when they got pregnant, they didn't need to abort, or they weren't in some effed up situation in their life where they had to make a quick decision. And in Alabama, you'd have only 6 weeks to make this decision. How is 6 weeks enough to make a decision for the rest of your life? I don't even think the 9 months is enough. 6 weeks. In 6.5 weeks, you'll go to jail. Jail. You haven't been through enough. You haven't had a person created inside of you and then had that person removed from you. You haven't been through enough drama. You also now need to go to prison because you're a hardened criminal now. It doesn't make any sense. I don't get it. And it goes back to what do you want? Because there's a lot of like tax brackets and stuff we could talk about. There's a lot of big words we can use when we're talking about who we're going to vote for. But the fact of the matter is this. What do you want? And then, if you know what you want, then you could just look at this list of candidates and you can find one that you like. I'll tell you one I don't like. This week, we got a hot or not. East Coast Radio. Who's not? Bill de Blasio. Man, I like Bill de Blasio. And Bill de Blasio right now is in the lane where he's the mayor of New York City. You know, when Cuomo's out of governor, de Blasio could probably run for governor. Probably win. And I'm not saying I disagree with the policies he's for and stuff. I like New York and Lime bikes and stuff like that, and jump bikes and all that, but at the same time, this is not the time for it. And Bill de Blasio needs to, as they say on Ari Melber, on the beat with Ari Melber, Bill de Blasio needs to fall back because 77% of New Yorkers think it's a bad idea for him to run for president. New York is the city where he won the mayor, so it's gonna be a long one, man. It's gonna be a long one, and we just have to keep our eyes on the prize here. Change the game. That's gonna be my slogan. Like, I'm gonna try to get that over. I'm trying to get over change the game. You need to change the way you think. Because listen, I'm gonna be alive way longer than these 70-year-old people wearing the MAGA hats are. And you are too. And we need to make sure that they don't make the country, the future of our country, a place that we literally can't live anymore. I mean literal. So, de Blas's gotta fall back. We gotta change the game. We have to have oversight over our country. And you have to remember that, you know, people try to pretend that politics is hard. It's complicated. Oh, it's hard to understand. Here's all you need to understand. When voting, ask yourself, what do you want? What do you want? Dyze in your house. Exclusively on East Coast Radio.